Okay, so good afternoon. Thanks for coming on a extra class. So this topic that we are going to cover today is actually very easy, much in the same way how the bias variance trade-off idea is. Just that it is very practical, so it's very useful to know these things. So in that sense, even though we are not spending much time on bias variance trade-off, the ideas are very useful. Okay, so. Yeah, so I think it's a useful class from the practical standpoint. Okay. So, all right. So let's quickly recap what we had been doing in bias variance trade-off, and then let us see some more details of this problem. Okay. So before I get started, so let me just okay. So we were looking at bias variance trade-off, right? So this was what we were looking at, and we saw several important things regarding this. So first, the model itself. So what is a model that we studied? That is also kind of important. So there is basically a target, right? So possibly noisy, which is like y, you're getting y's from that, f of x, plus some noisy epsilon. Okay, so expected value of epsilon, it's a zero mean noise, whereas there is some variance. Okay. And x's themselves, they are coming from some underlying distribution on the feature space, input space, or the feature space x. And that distribution, as usual, is px. And from this combined thing, so px for getting x's and epsilon to get the noise. So basically, you will get a joint distribution between px and y. Okay, as before, that whatever we had been seeing in the empirical risk minimization framework, in the same way we will get. So this time when we are getting the samples, we call it D. Okay. So yeah, so it's just that the notations are slightly different, but the ideas are exactly same. Okay, so I hope you're not going to get confused by that. So these are all the samples. These then go into our learning algorithm. So learning algorithm, which in turn has several plug and play components, if you wish to think about it that way. So you can decide what loss function you want to use, and you can in fact also decide what hypothesis bag will you use, right? Okay, and at the end, what you are hoping is the final thing that you learn. So your algorithm will give you some H, or in this particular notation, we call it GD, right? So this should be as close to F as possible, right? So in the bias variance trade-off that we had been studying, what we do is we look at the out of sample performance, which is E out of GD. Okay, so this is very similar to how we had done for the empirical risk minimization. This was in the empirical risk minimization world, this was called R of GD, right? But any case, this will be expected value over x and y. Y, the uncertainty in y is captured by epsilon, so I will put epsilon. Okay, then the loss function of y, which is nothing but f of x plus epsilon, right? Comma GD of x, right? So this is what we took, and we said that GD itself is a random thing, right? So depending upon how you get the samples, your performance can drastically change. So in order to be fair, we may as well take an expectation with respect to D, the data set. Okay. So we took this, and that actually essentially means you take expected value over D, expected value over x and epsilon. And this thing now we can write it as the loss function that we choose for the bias variance case. We choose LMS loss, and we look at regression problems. So this is not to say that this similar thing doesn't hold for classification with different laws. There are many other settings where bias variance trade-off can be brought in. Okay, we are choosing, for example, in every statistical learning theory concept, we chose one amongst the possible choices just to give you like a flavor of each of these choices, right? How it plays out. So that's why we consciously just took these, because one is of course to get the coverage, and another thing is these are easy things. So typically textbooks and lectures and other things typically follow this. Okay, so yeah, but the ideas that you will learn, that actually generalizes. Okay, so here with the LMS loss function, so you get fx plus epsilon minus gd of x whole squared. Okay, so this is what we got. And then when we did some simple algebra, we could show this as bias of h plus variance of h plus noise terms, right? So noise level or noise energy, these are all the names they say. So that is represented by the variance, which is sigma squared. Okay, so now this is what we saw, and we also saw an example where we looked at the noiseless sinusoid, and we looked at two different hypotheses back, and we got some interpretation, right? So I will not again go through the entire detail on that, but let me just try to summarize what happens, right? So if you're like, okay, so let's take, so if your hypothesis bag, okay, so if your hypothesis bag gets more complex, okay, if you increase this, so what? So the entire breakdown is out of sample performance, right? Is equal to bias of h plus variance of h plus noise, right? So if my bag gets more and more complex, so we saw yesterday that this will increase, this will reduce the bias, right? So my bag is getting more and more complex. So in particular, I will be able to choose a better thing. So this will come down, whereas the variance will increase. Okay, so this we saw, and we also saw if we increase the data points, okay, if we increase the data points, but target and the bag, okay, is fixed. So what that does, so the bias doesn't change much. Okay, so that will not change much, whereas the variance will increase. So the idea why the bias doesn't change much is like if you take a sinusoid and if you take a linear bag, right? So no matter how many points you give, that is the best you can do. The line is the best you can do, right? So in that sense, bias doesn't change, whereas the variance could increase. Okay. So then in the same context, we looked at some learning curves. Okay. So these learning curves are very illustrative. So let me again repeat that.
Sir, in the last one, the variance should decrease, right?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. So the variance decreases because it becomes harder to pick a very noisy thing, right? The probability becomes a little more harder. So when you are given 3 points from the sinusoid, you will be able to avoid some of the more complicated shapes, right? So with 2 points, you can get a shape like this. But when you have these 2 points and in additional one more point, you can kind of tend to get better samples. Okay, so that is the understanding. That's why the variance comes down. So now, yeah, so the learning curves. So let me, another thing we can actually bring in before we go to learning curves. So if you if we increase, so basically your target, your bag, your data points is fixed. But suppose if I increase my noise, right? So what will happen to the bias? So if I increase the noise, since it is zero mean, the bias doesn't change much, but the variance increases. Okay, because I will start getting all kinds of points which was not possible before. And also the stochastic noise component, right? The noise level, sigma square, that also increases. So this is one thing that I didn't mention yesterday. I mentioned, but I think it's important enough to state again. So the key takeaway is that, so let me write the key takeaway of this entire exercise, key takeaway, right? So what you should do is match your hypothesis complexity, right? Hypothesis, or it's sometimes also called as model complexity to the data resources that you have, how many data points you have. Okay, so that is the key takeaway. And if you remember, what did VC dimension tell us? So VC dimension also said something similar, right? So choose an H so that your number of data points that you have is bigger than 10 times the VC dimension of H, right? So this is something similar that we saw in the case of VC analysis, right? So both the things are essentially saying the same thing. So I hope all of you can appreciate that. Okay. So then coming to the learning curves again. So this is again something that is important enough to repeat. So when you have a simple model versus a complicated model, so if you take a simple model, right? So and versus a complex model. So the complex model, the E in, so there will be two things I will draw, E in and E out. So let's draw the E in black. So when I draw the E in, so what happens? Initially you'll get exactly 0, okay, and then it will start increasing, and then it will saturate at the bias of the model. Okay, and your E out is going to be completely bizarre. It will not do well at all because there will be so much variance. But as you get more and more data samples, it will reduce. So this is your, so let me just write the axis, most important thing, N. Okay, and this is my E in. Now in the case of a simple model, your E in will not be 0. It's very difficult with a simple model to even explain the limited data points you have. So could be that the E in will be at a higher level. So, but then again, it will saturate quickly. The same thing when you come to E out, the variance is low. So this is like this, okay. And this middle point where it is tending to saturate, that is our like the bias. E out. So this is okay, expected value of E out, okay. I should write expected value of E in. Okay, all right. So are they, yeah, so this is the simple model, this is the complex model. So depending upon the data samples, so if you are living in this side of the world, then you better take a simple model because your E out will be much lower than the E out you get in complex model. If you are having a high number of data points, if the points are much higher, then you can get away choosing a complex model. So that is the message of this entire discussion. Okay, and that is the same message that we got in VC dimension discussion as well. Okay, so this is not really that new, so to speak, but it's much easier to understand. That is what I would say. So are there any questions? Okay, so if there are no questions, so let me just then go into what is that? So we will look at a demo. Okay, so now what we are looking at is, okay, so before that, so let me just motivate why we do regularization. Okay, so first of all, what is regularization also? I haven't told you. So let us try to understand that. So if you look at VC, right? So first there are two views that we have got. So let's write both the views in the same area. So first view is, if you remember, R of H, right? So this is the out of performance sample for some H, right? This is upper bounded by R hat of H plus the complexity of H, and something like this we had got. This is from VC, correct? So this is true for all H belonging to my H, right? So this is what we had got through VC, okay? So we also got that this empirical risk minimization also we got, but anyway, the main message is this. So your out of sample performance is bounded by your in sample performance plus some kind of a complexity term. So now in the same way, when we got here, so E out of expected value of E out of sample, if you want to call it. So if you want, we will put even the E out. Okay, we will put that also. So this is for a particular GD, which is picked from some bag H, right? So this one is equal to bias of H plus variance of H. Okay, so plus the noise. Now, if you really think about whatever we have been doing in our learning model, so what we did, let us recap. So when we looked at linear regression, we looked at JW, which is equal to 1 over 2, if I am not wrong, if that's, or it could be even 1 over n, that doesn't really change much. I equal to 1 to n, expected value of, sorry, not expected value, what is that? W transpose xi minus yi whole square, right? And then we tried to choose W star, which is like arg min over W of J of W, right? I hope you all remember how we did this. So there were two approaches we took. One is the normal equations approach. There we got W is equal to, I don't know what we had called the matrix, X I suppose, X transpose X inverse, X transpose Y. Right, or it was I don't know what it was, but A transpose maybe, I don't know what exactly we use, X or A. Anyway, but this is what we did using the normal thing, and the other one was gradient descent, right? So in gradient descent, we said that WT plus 1 is equal to WT plus minus eta times gradient of JW, right? So this is what we did. So here again we had two choices, stochastic and like patch, right? So all of this you remember. See, but if you really think about it, what we are doing in this approach is only minimizing this, correct? So all learning algorithms basically try to pick a HN hat star, which is arg min R hat n of H, right? So we are only picking, in some sense, we are only picking the in-sample performance. We are not considering the complexity at all, right? So if I have to, if I say, suppose there is a family, the salary of the family is upper bounded by what the father makes and what the mother makes, right? So suppose we take an analogy, right? So family income is less than or equal to father's income plus mother's income, if I say, right? If you want to maximize the family income, it doesn't make sense just to maximize, let's say, father's income, right? So you need to basically, if you are maximizing, you need to maximize both. If you are minimizing, you need to minimize both, correct? So if I am choosing, if I want to minimize, I want to choose a H such that R of H is low, I need to choose an H, where I will not just minimize this, I should also include this, and then together I should try to minimize, right? Does that make sense? So in the same way, right? So if I want to look at out of sample performance, I can choose a very complicated bag where the bias is 0, but I may have to pay in terms of variance, right? So I have to ensure both these things are minimized, then only I will do better in the out of sample. Okay, so basically I need to not just minimize the data error, I should also have some kind of a penalty for choosing a complicated model, right? So let me write that in a new page. So the idea, what is the idea? We need to choose HN star hat, the best classifier, okay, which minimizes one data error as usual, okay. Two, a simple penalizes complicated model or complex models, right? So this is what we understand from both these treatments. So both the VC as well as this, we can understand that you need to choose an HN star so that you not just account for data error. Data error can be 0, which is very good, but you should also ensure that it is not too complicated. So does this make sense? Can I just quickly check in your chat? Is this clear, what I'm discussing here? Okay, this is good. So that is the next thing. So what we will do is we will look at a model that does this. So we have already done this in the context of when we learned linear regression. So we had already looked at this, but let us revisit it. So what we will do is we will have our, so incorporating this idea. So we will have JW, which is equal to this, right? Summation 1 over n or 2, I don't know, but that doesn't matter. X transpose W, Xi transpose W minus Yi whole squared. But we will also penalize like the W. So we will have plus lambda by n if you want to do. If there is n here, you have to put n here. W transpose W. So what this does, if the W is very big, it will discourage such Ws. Okay, so this is called as L2 regularizer. Okay, so if I keep the same thing, and if I look at lambda by n, and I can look at what is called as, this is W transpose W is same as the Euclidean distance, which is the L2 norm. So you put a 2 here to indicate it's a L2 norm squared. So you can also look at L1 norm, right? So if you look at L1 norm, so I hope you have studied different types of norms. So L1 norm looks at the total difference in the absolute value and sums over that. Okay, so this is L1 norm. So when you do that, you'll get another type of regularizer. Okay, so L1 norm regularizer. Anyway, so what it does, there is one nice demo which I will share with you. I want you to go through this one. I will share this. It's a sklearn example. You just see it is giving some interesting insights. So you can just go through it. Okay. So this is what, yeah. And ElasticNet basically takes a combination of these two. All right. So you can check this out. I will share it with you. Anyway, so that is about why the regularization makes sense. So let us try to study the performance of regularization on a simple model. So that is the next.
So I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Sir, penalizing W transpose W does not affect the complexity of the model, no? Because if the model was linear, even after changing, I mean, if we bring the W to a small value, the model is still a linear model.
Yeah. I understand the question. It is a very natural question. So you should actually penalize the linear class itself. That is what you're asking, right? But I am saying even amongst linear models, we want to discourage. So suppose, yeah, so that is correct. So what you're asking is how do I compare, first of all, like if I use linear, let us say, then if I consider squares features, right? Square of x's. So linear means I have just x. Okay, so x is equal to x1, x2, maybe d-dimensional features. But I can take squares, which I can take as x1, x2, xd. Then I can look at all the xi, xj's, all the terms. Then I can look at xi squared, xj squared. All these things, terms will also come, right? So ideally, this is one hypothesis bag, h1, right? And this is another hypothesis bag, h2. So if you are looking to penalize, you should penalize basically by having an omega, one for one penalty that applies to linear, one penalty that applies to this, and then you should compare. Okay, that is correct what you are saying. That's what theory says. But what I'm saying is, even amongst the linear model, even amongst the linear world, you would like to choose a simpler model. Okay, between whether we choose linear or whether we choose square, we will come back to this. Okay, so please remind me if I don't tell you how to choose, whether to choose this or this. It's very trivial. You already know it, but I will anyway repeat. But I am saying across models, of course, we are not making exactly the same thing what the theory recommends. But what we are doing is within H1. So let me write that. So within H1, we want a simple model. Okay, is that okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now let us try to, we have to do two things. First, we have to see how regularization, in what way it controls our performance. And second, how do you choose what level of model do you use? So that these are the two things that we have to study, and we will do it today in this class itself. The whole thing will be just done. Okay, and it is easy, and it's nothing that you don't know. You already know this, but we are just trying to wrap up the whole discussion so that you are now, at least I have formally told you what all of these things are. Okay, so coming to the demo, so this is something you can see. I will share this with you. So then looking at a simple regularization demo. Okay, so what is it? What will happen when I change this lambda, right? So that is what I would like to do. So to study that, we have considered a noisy target. Okay, so I have considered a second degree polynomial. So this is second degree, and then some noise is added to it. So is this visible to everybody? Should I increase? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
It's visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So this is the noiseless version. So the target is this x minus 1 whole squared plus some noise. Okay. So I have got 4 points from it, right? And yeah, and then if I draw samples, you will get these points, which are not exactly lying on the blue line, which is the noiseless version, but it will be displaced here and there. Okay. And what do I do with this? So I will train a model. If you see it, I'm training a 4th degree polynomial for it. Is that correct? What is this polynomial feature doing? I think it is doing that. So let me just check in sklearn if that is what it does. Yeah, so I'm training a 4th degree model, right? So I want to basically train a 4th degree model on these 4 points, right? So when we do that, of course, you will fit perfectly. The EIN is 0, and we are in the world where bias is 0 and the variance is high, right? So let us draw it in our sheet, right? So you have a model like this. You have 4 points. The true underlying thing that you would like to learn is this. And since I put a 4th degree polynomial, what I will get is something like this, right? So this is so EIN is 0. So also bias of H is 0, right? Okay, bias of H is, I don't know. We have to compute and see what is the best 4th degree if you take average. Let us not go there. EIN is 0, right? Whereas E out is extremely high. Okay, so this we can understand. And so this is the frame of world where we are saying we are having overfitting. Okay, so overfitting means I am choosing an extremely complicated model which does well in my data sample, but it may not do well when you try to generalize it. Okay, so the performance out of sample may not be good. Okay, so this is overfitting. So now we start regularizing it. So when you start regularizing it, the lambda that I have chosen at different values, we will regularize it. Okay, so the way we do is, this is the regularizer, ridge regression. So L2 norm is also called as, the L2 regularizer is also called as ridge regularization. Okay, it's also called as ridge regression. So we will put two different values, one with 0.001. I don't know why I have done this. Okay, I think something I have mistaken. Yeah, so this is actually effectively overwriting this, right? So, okay, anyway, doesn't matter. So I should actually delete this, but I have to rerun and everything. But anyway, so it is okay. So once you do some amount of regularization, you are able to fit better and better, right? So this one actually does much better. And if you start increasing the regularization more, then what happens? You will start suffering more bias. Okay, so this is the first picture. The second picture is, these are the 4 points. Okay, so our blue target is like this, and our learned target is also kind of matching it. Okay, and here both, this is like an ideal performance. Your bias is also low, your variance is also low. Okay, this is just right. So what was first? Overfitting, then it became just right, and as you can understand, what is the next one? It will become underfit, right? So if you have 4 points, okay, so this is your true model. Underfitting case happens when your best average hypothesis is also not able to fit with high. There is going to be high bias. Okay, so this is your underfitting case. So this is happening for various, so within one model itself, I think that was Ankit who asked me, right? So within one model itself, depending upon the lambda that we choose, right? So if this lambda is 0 and this lambda is high, right? Lambda high. Okay, so this is lambda that is just right. So within one hypothesis bag itself, depending upon how much I penalize for my model complexity, I am able to get the entire spectrum. Okay, so this world bias is low. Okay, variance is high. Here, what is the thing? Both bias is, maybe it is in like bias plus variance, right? That is better way to say. Bias plus variance is reduced. Right? In this world, bias is high, but variance is low. So yeah, so within one model itself, we can get overfitting just right and underfitting depending upon the value of lambda that was used to penalize the model. Okay. So now what is a natural question? Yes.
How to choose a lambda?
Exactly, right? So that is what we need to tell. And that will also answer which of the two bags we can choose. See, if we can decide what lambda to choose, I can also decide whether I should choose H1 or H2, right? So that is where we are going to go next. Okay, so and that is called as validation, something that you have already learned, I'm very, very sure. So have you learned the term validation before? Siddharth?
No, sir, not in one of the courses before.
Okay, not in one of the courses. I'm so surprised. I thought in the AI course you would have seen anyway. Okay, so nothing great, extremely simple. So what you do, so you take your entire training labeled instances. Okay, so So now first let me write what is the question that we are addressing. Okay, so what are the questions? Question number 1, how to choose lambda, and question 2, how to choose H1 or H2, or whichever, how much ever you want can put in the list. Okay, so this is what we have to do. So here what we will do is we will yeah, so this is the thing. So answer is validation. Okay, so answer is validation. Okay, so how do we do? What is validation? So very simple. So you take your training instances. Okay, you divide it into three different parts. So training instances are xi, yi's, right? Xi, yi, I equal to 1 to n. Okay, you divide it into 3 parts. So one is training set. Okay, if you are going to get confused by this training and this training, so let me not call it training instances, but I will say labeled instances. So labeled instances means I have both xi as well as yi. So what you do is you divide it into 3 parts: training, validation set, and then third part will be test set. Okay, the proportion that you divide, there are many choices. People do various things. You can try 60, 20, 20, or you can do 80, 10, 10. Depending upon, if you have too many data samples, then you can do 60, 20, 20. If you don't have so many data samples, you can do 80, 10, 10. Okay, if you have extremely few samples, we will come to that. Okay, extremely few samples, you have to use what is called as cross validation. So we will come to that. But essentially, you divide into 3 parts. Okay, so what is it that you will do? So using the test part, so using test, okay, I will get GD of H1, I will get GD of H2, right? So this I will get, or even if you want, I can get GD of lambda 1. So these are all the models that I will get, right? GD of lambda 2, all these things I will get. So this is using, sorry, not test. Nobody corrected me, but anyway, using the training set, right? So I will take my 60% of data and I will get simultaneously, I will train all these models. Okay. Then what I will do, I will look at the performance of each of this on the validation test. So E out, you know, that is the performance on the out of sample that we cannot do. So instead, we will look at E validation. How does it do on the validation set that we have kept across, right? So we will look at GH1 of D, okay, and then we will look at eval of GH2D, eval of G lambda 1 D, and eval of G lambda 2 D. Okay, the idea is basically your training set, you cannot look at these numbers, right? Because depending upon the model complexity, you will get 0 training error if the model is complicated enough. Okay, so when you are trying to compare on the validation set, you are basically trying to think of validation set as though it is like it's like a proxy. Okay, so you are considering this as a proxy, okay, to expected value of E out of, right? So expectation you can't take, so it's just E out, because you can't take expectation over GD, right? You are trying to look at this validation set as a proxy. Proxy means as a simulation or as an estimate, okay? And you can't use the training, that is very clear, because if you use training, whichever is more complicated model, that will have a better performance. You will get that as 0 and you will suffer. What do we suffer among the 3? So let me give you choices. Sorry?
Sir, overfitting.
Overfitting, yeah, right. So you will suffer overfitting. So you can't use the training. The validation set, is not something that your model was specifically prepared for, right? You did everything in the training. So validation set is, so to speak, little bit cleaner than the training set. Okay. And so when you do your measurement on the validation set, you are actually doing some kind of a fair comparison. That is the idea of validation. Okay. And then you will look amongst these 4 models, which is the best. Okay. And that model, let us say it is some H star. Okay. H star is the best model. Then what you will do, you will combine your training set and validation set, and you will get D H star of D training union D validation. So this you will combine and you will get a model which is picked from H star. And this is what you will finally say is the learning. This is the final like choice. Okay. So is it clear what we do in validation? Can I quickly check in the chat box if everything is all right? Can you please type if everything is clear? So Ankit, you had a question, right, that time. So now does it make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So now there is one thing that we still have to understand. Okay. So what is the purpose of the test set? So that question remains, right? So what is the purpose of the test set? So let us try to understand that. Why the test set? So one easy answer is to get estimate on out of sample, right? So if whatever model you have learned, okay, so if you want to estimate how well it will do in the real world, so if you want to get some estimate, so that is why we are keeping the test set like that, we can say. Okay, but then what is the purpose of validation? Why can't we use validation set? So why we cannot use validation set itself? So I have explained the complete procedure to you. So can someone tell me why we cannot use the validation set itself? Why are we keeping another test set separately?
Sir, we already have used the validation set in some way to choose our model, like in some way for our choice. So if our auto sample performance is tested on that, then this is the model that has already performed well on validation set was already favored. So it might be favoring that more, like rather than testing it.
Yes, that is correct. And what we will say is like you have the 3 spectrums, right? You have training, okay, then you have validation, and then you have test. Okay, so this is training. Siddharth and everybody can really see that this has highest bias, right? So this, whatever your model performance on training, we cannot really use. Why? Because our model has been trained on these points, so it will give low performance there. Okay, so this is dirty. Okay, validation, what has happened? We have used validation for model selection. So when you do model selection, you tend to pick models which are doing well on validation. So this is also biased. Okay, what is this bias is different from the bias variance state of bias. Okay, please don't get confused. What it says is you are going to get a number which is lower than what is going to be actual out of sample performance. Okay, so we will see a demo to explain this. What is this bias? I will show a demo to explain that. And test is the cleanest data. So this is the unbiased estimation for out of sample performance. So whatever Siddharth you said, but little bit more jargons I have thrown, but let us try to understand each one of them. So first of all, this should be clear to everybody. Is there anyone who doesn't understand this? So yeah, so how about this? So test set we have not used for anything. So this also should be clear to everybody, right? So is the why training is very dirty and why test is the cleanest out of sample performance? Does everybody understand? Can I just have a look at the chat, please? Yes. Okay, very good. So now we need to understand why there is a problem if we just stop at validation. And for that, we will look at a very simple example, and that is our second demo. Okay, so basically the idea is as follows. Okay, so there are two coins, coin C and coin D, which have a bias of 0.5 each. Okay, there are two coins with fixed bias 0.5 each. Again, please don't get confused with the word bias. Okay, this bias variance trade-off is different. I hope all of you will not get confused. But any case, there are two coins with exactly same probability of getting head, which is 0.5 or 0.5. Okay, so the thing that I want you to keep in your mind is that these are like your two different choices for your model. So this is one model, this is another model. Okay, and both models are same because the performance is the same. Okay, now when you try to estimate it, you can only do a finite number of coin tosses, as in the case with validation, right? In validation also, you are only evaluating the out of sample performance with a fixed number of trials, right? So in that sense, we are doing the estimate on a fixed number of trials, right? So that is what it is. So if you do that independently, if you don't do anything, like if you just use the validation set without choosing the best among the two coins, right? So if I choose just the estimate, I don't do like which of the two is better, I don't do, then I will get the performance which is 0.500745, which is like the correct estimate for 0.5, right? So this is quite easy. I am not doing any model selection. I'm just doing the performance on the validation set. So as long as you are just doing on the validation set without choosing the model, validation set is good enough for telling you how good is the model. So that is what is the example showing here. See, other coin also will do very similar, right? So 0.500, 0.500, right? So 0.5. So that is working fine. Now what we will do in the validation set, not just we will try to estimate which among the, what is the probability of getting head in each of the two coins, we will also choose the best among the two coin. So what is the best among the two coin? Yes, what is the best among the two coin?
So the second one.
No, there is none, right? See, actually, you know the truth, 0.5, 0.5. So there is no best as such, correct? See, what am I doing? I am going to, I don't know what is PC, I don't know what is PD. I will repeatedly toss each of these coins, and if I look at the histogram, both performance is 0.500. The second one is 0.500 also. Ignore the fourth digit, that is anyway so low. Let us not bother about it. Now what we will do is, in the estimation, what we will do, we will toss one of like few times this, and whichever is coming low amongst the two, that I will choose as my best sample. Okay, and then I will try to choose that, and I will try to report what is the number I'm getting. Okay, so see, if you see this, so I will estimate once for C, I will estimate once for D, and whichever is lower, I will use that as the best coin, and then I will try to draw the histogram for that. And when I draw the histogram for that, I am getting 0.490, which is much lower than 0.5. Yes, is it clear what I am trying to say, Siddharth?
Yes, sir. So, yeah, it's lower than 0.5. So
it is lower than 0.5. So what has happened is, even though the two coins were identical, because we chose so-called best, which was really not there, we said something as the best based on performance on a limited number of trials. I said what is best among the two. The performance that I'm measuring due to this process is going to be less than 0.5 strictly. Correct? So this is a spurious performance. The actual performance is 0.5, whereas what I'm estimating from my validation set is 0.49. Okay, so which is a better, in the sense I wanted to choose a coin which gives me lower heads. So in that sense, when we use validation, we have these kind of problems. Does that make sense? See, if you consider the 4 models that we took in the previous example, all the 4 models, let us say it is identical. Okay, and I look at the performance on the validation set and I choose one. See, what will end up happening is I will choose the one which is lucky in the sense more than which is actually good. I will end up choosing lucky models. Okay, and when I choose lucky models, my performance will tend to be better than what it is really in the out of sample. Okay, so can I don't know if this explanation is enough. So can I quickly check if everyone understands this? Yes, no?
Sir, I think maybe I understood the experiment wrong. Why do we want that average value to be lower?
No.
That's not a measure.
No. Yeah. So in the expected value of E out, what do? You choose a one which is having the lower in the validation set. I will choose a model which does low in that, right? The error should be low in the out of sample, in the validation set, right? Remember? So if we come back to this model here, what did I say? So we will look at the various performance. I will choose the best among the lot, right? In the sense that whichever does best in the validation set, whichever is the least in the 4, this much you understand, Siddharth?
Yes, sir. All of this I understood, sir.
Yeah. So in the same way, I am saying, let us say PC and PD represent 2 different models who are essentially the same. The performance is 0.5 itself. Okay. So my estimate several times is like my validation. I'm trying to estimate it on the validation set. Okay. Is that okay? So there are 1,000 points I'm validating my model on. Just trying to see. I'm just trying to estimate eval, let us say. Okay. Siddharth? I'm just going to do coin tosses and I will estimate. That's all.
Yes, sir. Sir, here is the loss associated with only heads.
Here I want to get a low number. I want to get as few heads as possible. The 2 coins that I have, both are same essentially 0.5, 0.5. But my model wants to choose amongst, my model doesn't know. I don't know, sorry, not my model. I don't know which among the 2 is actually lower. Okay. So this is something that is set, but it is not really known to me. So the only way I can do it is by repeatedly tossing it and choosing the one which is minimum, right?
Sir, why do we want lower number of heads?
No, that is because we want to get lower error. So heads is like an error, you can think.
Sir, why is it the error here?
No, I have to choose some metric, right? Something, some 2 coins, some metric I have to choose which is lower. So I don't know. So every time I make an error, I will say it is 1. It is just a simulation of the validation exercise, Siddharth. It is not really trying to compare one-to-one with real models.
Yes, sir, but still I didn't understand the point of the experiment. What are we trying to like?
Okay, so the point of the experiment
because
is
heads is going to come nearly half of the times, no?
Yeah, it will come nearly half of the time. So that is correct. So let us forget about validation for a moment. Let us say I give you 2 coins. Okay, my purpose is I want to minimize the number of heads I will get. So I have to choose a coin which favors tails much more than heads. So that problem, is it okay to you?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
So I have given 2 coins. I don't know what is the bias of the 2 coins. I don't know what is the probability with which it will give you. I am just saying you have to choose a coin which is lower, right? So that's fine.
Yes, sir.
So now I can do 1,000 trials. So that is what I am permitting you to do. So if I do 1,000 trials on coin C, you will get 0.500745. That should be okay to understand.
Yes, sir. Sir, now I understood. If that is our objective, then I understood the entire thing.
Yeah, now all I'm saying is replace your PC and PD with 2 different models, and your estimate several times is like your performance on your validation set, right?
Yes, sir.
So then when I'm choosing the model, whichever is minimum among the 2, if the models are really identical, then I will end up choosing the lucky model more than actually doing well model, right?
Right, sir. Yes, sir.
So that is the whole point. So I will get a number 0.49. This is my like performance on the validation set over many runs. this number is 0.49, whereas there was no model which was having this number. So we got a number which is strictly lower. Is that okay, Siddharth?
Yes, sir, now it's fine.
Okay, very good. So, all right, so this is what it is. So basically your validation set is like a biased performance on your out of sample test. Okay, so that is what I would like to tell. So if you want to really get an unbiased estimate, all you need to do is you have to do this on the test set. Okay, so that is one thing. So now I hope this is clear to everybody. So there are two things I still need to cover. So one is, okay, so let's connect it here itself. So I hope this is also clear. Okay, so then next thing that I would like to talk about is what is called as data snooping. Again, this is a very easy thing. So sometimes, right, so given your data points, one strategy which people do, okay, so this is what you do is you just plot the points and then you try to see what works. So if I plot, let's say points like this, and suppose if I get my samples like this, so these are all my positive samples, and suppose my negative samples are here. Okay, they are just encircling this. So suppose if I give you the points, positive samples are in the center, negative samples are outside. What you will end up doing is that you will think perhaps I should choose features so that I can have this kind of a shape, right? So I will transform my features x1, x2, okay, to second degree features. So I will look at x1, x2, x1, x2, then x1 squared, x2 squared. Then when I do, I can get a need separation. Perceptron will work well by choosing this kind of a surface, which brings all the points, positive points in the circle and all the negative points outside, right? So I can do something like this, but this is a problem. Okay, this is an issue, right? So why is this an issue? Because I am looking at some data points and I am choosing a model. In some sense, I am doing some training, right? So I am actually doing some model selection by plotting. Okay, so I am doing the work of validation and I am actually doing this. Okay, so next time when I do samples, perhaps next time when I run it, when I get somebody else, so let us say this I do, and then when Siddharth does it, he will get points like this. Okay, and it can happen, right? The points, you don't know anything about the features. So when Siddharth does it, he gets like this. Somebody else, if Solanki does it, then he may get points completely differently, right? So he may get minus here and he may get pluses here. So basically what we are saying is that if you plot and then decide what hypothesis you will use, this is a problem because you are doing some kind of a validation. You are choosing a model. Okay, so model selection you are doing implicitly. Okay, so you are actually doing some kind of a model selection, and that is actually bad, because even though the computer may not be doing it, you are doing it, and that is not really good for the performance, because you will end up choosing things like this. Okay, so now what is the crucial thing? So this is one thing, but this is not capturing. So this is only by plotting, if you are doing, that is wrong. But if you actually know something about the model, if you have a prior information, okay, if you have concrete prior information or domain knowledge, okay, so if you are, for instance, talking about tumors, okay, so you know that tumors that are malignant are typically bigger than tumors that are benign. Okay, so if you know this domain information and choose a model, there is no problem. The problem happens if you don't know the domain, if you don't have a prior information, if you are plotting the points and then you are making a selection, you are going to do something like trying to choose best among several models in your mind. Okay, and you will get a bias sample. So this is called as data smoking. It's a simple thing. I hope you can understand the idea. It is very similar to the bias that we saw in the validation. So model selection always is biased. So you have to be careful of this. So this is another thing that is kind of related, which I wanted to tell. Okay, so there was one more demo that I wanted to show, but I didn't have the time. Just I wanted to show some handwritten demo, but I will share this with you. See, the idea is you have these handwritten digits, right? So what we do is we look at only 1 or 5. We look at only two handwritten digit, 1 or 5. Okay, 5 looks like this. 1 is kind of straight, right? So 5 and 1, this is the pixels. There are totally 28 cross 28 pixels. Out of this, we generate two scores, intensity and symmetry. Okay, and when you plot all the data points with respect to that, you get features like this. Okay, and if you draw like a higher dimensional like a fit, if you try to do, the fit that we are using is linear fit. So you will get a shape like this. Okay, and I wanted to show basically regularization if we do on this, how it works. So that I will skip. I will let you all do it. So there are two or three things you can try. You can look at how the validation performs with respect to actual E out. That one you can do on this data set. You can also look at like what the regularization does on the contour. So all the code is here. I will share it with you. You can go through it. Okay, so there were basically 3 different things we saw today. We saw regularization. We saw the bias that comes in validation. We also saw what is all the various regularizations that we can do. So the only thing that remains, which I will briefly mention, is cross-validation. So when you don't have enough data, what you do, maybe I will give that as a learning reading exercise. It's a very simple thing. I will just give you some resource to read. Okay, so that is it. So I don't want to talk more about this. So I think we are done here. So so I will hang back for questions. So if any one of you have any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will see tomorrow. Tomorrow we will start SVM. All right. So thank you once again for coming on a Wednesday. So I will hang back for questions. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I will stop the recording. Are there any questions? Does someone want to have any immediate questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so yeah, Siddharth, you can tell me.
So, sir, you
maybe,
told...
maybe I will just stop the recording, Siddharth, just to keep the recording small.